Hey folks, welcome back to Metal Mill 52 Workshop. I think I'm going to make this the intro and wrap up, and just like I did with last week's post, I will attach a bunch of short videos that I shot, little segments of some machine work to give you an idea. So here's what I've been working on. It's the tooth rest assembly. It's in page 21 of the book for the collar for the tooth rest assembly, and that's this thing right here. And I took this photograph. This is one of the resources that I mentioned early on when I began the project, metal.duncanamps.com. It's a person named Duncan Monroe, and on the page it says Duncan's Metal Pages. And so he's got a lot of small photographs. You can click on them, and I really appreciate this. So I clicked and then I printed it. So you can get a real idea. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. You get a real idea of how things need to be together and where they go. Now, those of you that have studied the very much improved Quorn articles by Walter Mueller, you note that he basically doesn't use this whole tooth rest assembly. He has a different one, but then again, he's got that air spindle for his for his tool grinding. I plan to build this anyway. Two reasons. Well, I had the collar. The cast iron collar came with my set of castings, and then I've got steel pieces that I can make the rest of this out of. This is fabricated from steel, and I've got some nice stainless steel bar here as well. And this I had just finished. I'm just a little bit aggravated right now, but oh well. I had just finished machining this thing. You'll see, if you want to see the rest of the pictures, and I was literally on the very last stage, was machining this flat here. This is where the bolt would go against it. And when I came in it, was like a 15 thousandths cut, just to give myself a nice little flat there. The dang thing broke, and here the reason it broke is because the casting from not Hemingway's, but Model Engineering Services, that the original buyer of this set bought in the 70s, it had this huge inclusion, which you'll see I point out in the rest of the video. I had no idea that it was this deep and that it was going to interfere with the actual bore, and I'm a little frustrated because I'm not the greatest at the boring head, and I had bored this thing. I mean, it was the perfect fit. It was maybe a half a thou over, so it fit on the vertical column. You'll see in a minute. But it had a really nice finish there and a very nice fit, and I had sawed through, I drilled, I milled a flat here, an 1/8 inch notch just now for this is the side that the rod would have a little notch on it so it wouldn't rotate. I'm talking about it is like right here in the picture, right there. So I was so excited. I was like, man, this is great. I'll be able to, my plan was it's Saturday night right now. I hadn't had much workshop time all week. I've been very busy, and I thought, this is great. I'll finish this part tonight, and then tomorrow I can make the rest of the parts. Then I'll have this thing done and ready to put it together with my Quorn, and that'll be one more thing checked off the list. Well, as I was machining that little flat, this thing just broke right off. It just snapped, and I'm so frustrated about that because it was done. But that is a serious inclusion, and I don't think there's anything. I don't know how to braze. I know a welding shop in town that can braze this back together, but I'd probably have to pay them $20 to do that, and it'd be kind of silly because I've got 3/4 inch steel chunks that I've saved from previous projects, and I think this is some more stuff that Russ gave me from the machine shop he used to work at. And as you can see, that's going to be about the right size. I mean, that's going to work out really well. So I'll just have to go and repeat all the steps to make the tooth rest holder out of this 3/4 inch steel instead of this cast iron. But I would be having to fabricate anyway, because you have to fabricate this thing here. That's how come I had this steel stock handy. And so here's some more of it right here. That'll probably end up becoming that part right there, I guess. If not, I've got some other little pieces laying around. Never throw away your small chunks of stock, because you never know when they're going to come in handy. So instead of having fun on the lathe and turning these fancy rods and getting all that put together tomorrow, I will be back at the mill again, working on this piece, recreating everything that I did here. So there's my little update. Stay tuned if you want to see some machining parts and of the excuse me, I captured a little bit of the boring, the facing, the drilling, and those kind of things. So anyway, thanks again, everybody. I appreciate you. Appreciate the new subscribers that we have. Please, give me a thumbs up, make a comment, tell your friends. Trying to grow the channel here, and it's a lot of fun, and I hope you're having fun too. Here I am preparing to do some more machining on the wheel head, the tooth rest collar that goes on the vertical column. I decided not to use the 4-jaw, but instead to use the mill. What I did first was to take it to the grinder, to the ordinary bench grinder, and I ground it flat across the top, and ground a little bit of relief on the bottom. Then I milled it. I placed it face top down in the mill vise, milled off 20 thousandths to give myself a nice flat surface, flipped it over, and milled another 20 thou off the top. So now I've got it in the vise, and I'm going to start to surface it. I'll take and surface this side flat, and then I can flip it over and surface the other side. I'll go ahead and surface it to 3/4 inch thick, and then I can bore it out to the 1.25 inch. The core hole here is basically 1 inch anyway, so there's not that much more that needs to come out. And then it's just a simple matter of drilling and reaming and milling a couple of flats on the end. But I'll get more into that as we go along and explain more of the process. That's a total of 55 thousandths off to clean up this side. Now I'm going to turn everything off, flip it over, and clean up the other side. I'll measure it as well before I start machining the other side, because the finished dimension, not that it's that critical, but it's supposed to finish up at 3/4 of an inch, so if I can make it come out close to that, that would be beneficial. So here you can get a better look at what I did with the milling the top and the flat on the bottom. It's not very big. And then this side that I took 55 thou off of, it's nice and clean now, but it measures, the whole casting measures to 725 thousandths now, so it's not even going to finish at 3/4. It's already 25 thou shy, so I'm just going to take a cleaning pass on there. It couldn't hurt to do that. And because I'm going to be gripping it, I'm going to need to be gripping it this way for boring and milling these things. I have to mill a notch into this side, and for the tooth rest rod to go in. And this side, this is very interesting. I mean, when I first took a look at this casting, I assumed that this was some sort of special core hole that they made for some purpose. But now that I've studied the dimensions, the plans, and so forth, I don't think so. I think this is just a lousy casting that was included by the Model Engineering Services folks when the original purchaser bought these castings back in the 70s. So all this does is sit on the wheel head, and it holds the rods that stick out and become the tooth rest. So the looks aren't that critical. That's a huge inclusion, though. I think that's what you call that in casting. Maybe I can fill that in with JB Weld before I paint everything. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, because the idea is there's a hole bored through here, this is slit, and there's tension applied, and there's enough meat on that side that even after I mill a flat for the bolt, that it, there's contact area there. But I thought that was interesting and something worth pointing out. So you never know what you're going to get. It's like the Forrest Gump principle a little bit. Okay, enough of that. I'll just mill this side off and bring you back when we get back to the next work holding sides for the drilling and the facing a couple of spots here. Okay, I've finished machining the second surface, and I ended up taking off an even 1/8 of an inch, 125 thousandths. As you can see, it's not perfectly flat, but it looks pretty good. I'll just file that down a little bit, brush up the dust, and just leave it be for tonight. As I mentioned, the core hole itself right now is about 1 inch, so it really doesn't need to be bored out that much to get to 1 1/4 inches to fit on the vertical column. So we'll get it to that, and I'll show you how that. Working on a tooth rest collar. As you can see, I'm doing it on the milling machine. I'm taking off and boring the hole now, going up to 1 1/4 inches. I have about 80 thou left to go. I'm right at taking off 40 thou per pass, so 20 thou per side. I'm going to go a little deeper and test measure. Just wanted to catch a shot of this. What's interesting, the void that was in this casting, I didn't realize how deep it was and that it was going to penetrate into the hole. I don't think it's going to affect the functionality, but it sure got my attention when the boring hole, the first time it started going through that little gap there, made a heck of a lot of chatter. I thought something was wrong. Stopped the machine to check it out, and I realized what the deal was. So, like I said, after this hole, after this bore, should be 40 thou more to go, and that should fit on the vertical column. So let's go ahead and finish this cut now. Feeding by hand. There we go. That's through. Alright, just real quick, another example of why I'm glad that I did not Loctite the vertical column into the base. That is a very good fit. There's very little extra room in there. It's going to get split anyway, and of course I got to fill up the side with JB Weld or something, but really happy with the fit, the boring bar. I'll keep you posted on the other operations. Here I'm milling the notch, the flat spot on the tooth rest collar. Got a 5/8 inch end mill. Milling a flat spot for it. Set it up so that the part barely cleared the vise. I'm going to move this out from here. Mill off that edge. And I'll bring it back to my 0 and drill the 5/16 inch hole all the way through. As you can see, hopefully, it's going to mill off. I've already marked the center line too. I measured and marked the center line for the slicing cut before I milled off this flat. So next thing I do is drill the 5/16, drill ream 5/16 inch hole, flip it around and mill a similar flat on the back. And after I got the flat spot machined down for the rod, now I'm drilling a pilot hole. It's like a 7/32, I think, pilot hole. Just want to show that, this is nice cast iron, and it is actually fun to machine cast iron. It's a little dirty, but it's a neat material. I just wish it was easier to get and cheaper. So after I get done drilling this, I'll go ahead and drill this pilot hole. I'll drill the through hole with the 5/16. As you can see, I'm using a stubby drill. If you can get stubbies, they're very handy. That way you don't have, it saves you space on your Z-axis on your mill. Okay, here I am putting the slice in the casting. I'm using the very slow speed back gear on the Bridgeport. Sorry about that jerky camera action. I'm just excited because it's going pretty good. I'm using some tap paste as a lubricant as well. So it's going super slow. I'm feeding nice and easy. So far, so good. Alright folks, here's a little epilogue. It's still Saturday night. I had that beautifully shaped chunk of steel that looked like it would work, and sure enough, in about 2 hours time, since I had just done all those operations to the cracked casting before it cracked, I thought, I'll go ahead and break out I had finished putting up all the tools. I try to put everything away when I get done, but I went ahead and pulled them back out again, and I didn't have to thickness this thing. I just belt sanded it to get it smooth, and milled it a little bit on the edges, drilled it, made the notch, drilled and bored. That was probably the most time consuming process, but I got a nice finish, a decent finish in there, and the fit is good. Even though it's slit, I was afraid it would spring real tight, but it didn't. I guess the steel is so thick, so it should be able to tighten up okay, and pretty decent substitute for the casting that broke. So yay, happy ending to that. And now I get to make the rest of the pieces. Maybe I'll be able to do those after all. I'll probably post a separate one, because each of those little bars and so forth is a little bit of work, and as well as the cross piece here. I'll be making that out of steel, possibly this little chunk right here. So that's the epilogue. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and following along in my journey to build the Quorn Tool and Cutter Grinder. And I look forward to posting the next one. Thanks, and have a great week. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.